push the saute button. And if it's not on more, you can use the adjust button to get it to the more setting, which is the one farthest on the right side right here. Once the pot says hot, you can go ahead and add in a 1/4 cup of butter. So that's half a stick. And I just like to swirl the pot around a little bit until the butter's melted. And add in 1 diced onion, a smallish, medium-ish onion. And you're just gonna saute the onion for 2 or 3 minutes until it gets a little soft and translucent. Add in your rice. I'm using arborio rice. I buy it in the bulk section at Winco, but it looks like this. It looks like a shorter grain white rice. The reason we need to use arborio rice is because it's the kind that gets really creamy and it gives it that risotto taste. If you use another type of rice, you're not going to get the same results. So just go ahead and buy that arborio rice, and we're going to put in 1½ cups of uncooked arborio rice. Okay, and then we're just going to stir this, kind of coat the rice in the onions and butter, and just for a minute we're going to go ahead and stir that. And at the same time that you add in your rice, we're going to add in 2 cloves of minced garlic to give it some nice garlic flavor. And garlic burns pretty easy, so that's why we're only stirring it in now, and we didn't stir it in earlier with the onions. And then after the minute is up, stir in 1 cup of broth. And we're just going to let this kind of get all flavorful and delicious for about 3 or 4 minutes, and you're going to just stir it every now and then. Once the broth is totally absorbed into the rice, it just took about 2 minutes for me. Add in the rest of the broth, which is 3 more cups of chicken broth. You could also use some sort of vegetable broth. Stir that, scrape anything that's kind of stuck to the bottom. Make sure that it's totally scraped off so that you don't get your burn message. Add in a little bit of salt and pepper. I'm going to do 1/4 teaspoon of pepper and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I always like to use kosher salt when I'm cooking. And then I'm going to add in about 3 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese. And I'm just going to eyeball it, because if I get a little more than 3 tablespoons, that is just fine with me. Cover the Instant Pot. Make sure the valve is set to sealing and not to venting. Push the manual button. Some models use the word pressure cook instead of manual. Increase the time, or use these buttons to increase or decrease wherever you're starting from, and get it to 10 minutes. Once you get to 10 minutes of lapse time, you can then open up the pot. First, you got to remove any leftover steam that's still in there. So move this to venting. Go ahead and remove the lid. And it looks so creamy and delicious. I can't wait to give this a try. Garnish with a little bit of parsley if you'd like. And if it needs more salt and pepper, you can add that to taste. You can add in some spinach to this, stir it in, or maybe even some cooked broccoli. You can also serve it with chicken, or you can just have it as a side dish or plain. It's just good no matter how you decide to eat it. The first thing you want to do is add in 1 1/2 cups of water into the bottom of your Instant Pot. Now, today I'm going to be using brown rice. I have a bag of brown rice here. You can also use white rice, basmati rice, jasmine rice. Whatever rice you use, you're just going to have to use the corresponding water to rice ratios and time, pressure cooking times. And I will definitely put a link to those times in the notes below. And I'm going to flash up on the screen right now a chart as well. So we need 3/4 cup of the rice, and just sprinkle that in on top of the water. All right, the second ingredient that you're going to need is some salsa or picante sauce. I have some ideas for substitutions here for you today. Today I'm going to be using this, the paste picante sauce, but you can also use like a salsa verde. If you have these like fire roasted salsa tomatoes, you could use some enchilada sauce, and you could also use a can of like Rotel. I love this salsa just because it gives this recipe a lot of flavor. So whatever you add, make sure it has tons of flavor, because this is where the flavor of the recipe comes from, is from this one ingredient. Next up is a can of beans, and today I'm going to be using black beans. Some other substitution ideas are like white beans. I have Great Northern, and then these kind, ranch style beans, which are the kind that you usually use in chili. But you know, when you have it in your pantry and it's ready to go, these work just fine. And kidney beans, another type of beans that I didn't have is pinto beans, and that would work great. And you just want to rinse and drain those beans and then add them into the pot. Now you can make this recipe meatless, which is the original recipe was a meatless recipe, or you can add chicken on top. So for my family tonight, I'm going to add the chicken. Today I'm going to be using boneless, skinless chicken thighs, the frozen kind, and I'm just going to throw them right on top of everything else. Like I said, you don't have to have meat in this dish. You can just leave it out, but we're going to make it for dinner and have a little extra protein in there with the meat. And you can use frozen chicken thighs or breasts. Those both work. You can use fresh as well. It's up to you. All right, finally we're going to add in a few seasonings, and I have some garlic salt here. We're going to use a whole teaspoon of the garlic salt. If you don't have garlic salt, use half salt and half garlic powder. So that would be half teaspoon of garlic powder, half teaspoon of salt. And then sprinkle it over the top of the chicken, or if you don't have chicken, just over the top. I'm going to throw a bay leaf in there. This just gives it lots of flavor. If you don't have a bay leaf, don't worry about it. It's still going to taste great. And then a teaspoon of ground cumin works really well with this recipe, gives it some good flavor. Sprinkle it right over the top. And then I'm just going to throw in, because I added the chicken in, I think it just needs a little extra seasoning, a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper right on top. All right, ready to go. So that was super fast, right? It doesn't take very much time at all, and it's with all stuff hopefully you have in your pantry. We're gonna put the lid on tight, make sure the valve is sealed, and then we're gonna set this manual button, or on this model it says pressure cook, and you're gonna set it for 22 minutes. If you're using other types of rice, like I said before, the time is gonna be a little bit different. And if you're using white rice, you're only going to use a 5-minute cooking time. So in that case, you would not be able to use whole frozen chicken thighs or breasts, because they would not cook in that 5-minute cooking time. And the rice would be way overdone if you tried to do it for like 20 minutes or 18 minutes. So what I suggest in that case is that you cut up the chicken into like chicken tender sizes or into bite-sized pieces and throw it in if you're going to be using chicken. Once the time is up, you're going to let the pressure release naturally for 10 minutes and then remove any remaining pressure. Okay, once you can, remove the lid and open it up. And then I just stirred it up and the chicken just kind of shredded on its own. And you'll just want to remove that bay leaf, and you can just throw that away. Now you can tell that it's a little bit liquidy in here. And when you add the chicken, it does add some extra liquid in with it, so you may want to decrease the amount of liquid if you don't want it to stew like. If you want a little more dry, then just use like a 1/4 or a 1/2 cup less liquid in this recipe. But today we're going to kind of serve it almost like a stew. We'll put it in our bowl here, and the fun thing about this is you can eat it the way it is, or you can add in different toppings. I have sour cream and cheddar that you can grate up, or an avocado you could slice up. Even diced fresh tomatoes are great on this. Extra salt and pepper to taste, and maybe some more cumin to taste. Just a fast and easy recipe for you to make with ingredients that you already have in hand. The thing that you want to do is add 2 cups plus 1/4 cup of water into your Instant Pot. And then you're going to add in rice. Now I'm using brown rice. So I'm doing 2 cups of brown rice. You can use white rice, long grain white rice. You can use converted rice. You can use basmati or jasmine rice, whatever type you like. Just make sure to follow the rice to water ratios that I show on the screen right now. Now I'm gonna add in 2 tablespoons of low sodium soy sauce. And I like the low sodium because you get flavor, but it's not super salty like regular soy sauce is. And then add in 1 piece of fried chicken. So I just bought this from Smith's, and I just asked for 1 chicken leg, and you can just pop that in. This is a great recipe to make if you eat fried chicken and then you have some leftovers. Just save 1 piece for the next day to make this delicious rice. All right, put on the lid, make sure valve's set to sealing, and then for brown rice, I'm gonna set it to 22 minutes on high pressure. Use whatever time is stated in that chart that I showed you earlier, depending on what kind of rice you use. Make sure to do a natural pressure release for about 10-15 minutes, and then move the valve to venting, remove any remaining pressure, and then you can take the lid off. And we have our rice. Now you're gonna take this piece of chicken out. It's gonna be really tender. And just kind of shred up any meat and any skin that is on the chicken. And then we're gonna add that back into the pot for more flavor. And your rice is ready to eat.
First things first is you need some rice. Now I cooked my rice in the Instant Pot and I chose to use brown rice. You can use white rice, jasmine rice, whatever you like to use. I'm gonna flash up a table on the screen right now of how long to cook rice and what ratio you wanna use and things like that. The main thing that you need to know for this recipe is you wanna cook 2 cups of raw rice. So whatever the ratio of water to that is, just go ahead and throw that in your Instant Pot, turn it on the time indicated in the chart, and then get that rice and set it in a bowl. Now, ideally this rice would be cooled down a little bit. It wouldn't be super hot. It might even be cold from the refrigerator. This recipe is great for leftover rice that's in your fridge because the colder the rice is, the better the texture turns out and it doesn't turn out as mushy. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn the Instant Pot onto the saute setting, and you're just gonna push the saute setting, make sure that it's on more, and then wait for your Instant Pot to say hot, to heat up.
Add in 3 tablespoons of canola oil or vegetable oil. Let it really coat the bottom of the pan. And then we're gonna add in 2 eggs that have been whisked really well. And those eggs are gonna cook very quickly. We just wanna break them up into very small pieces.
We're gonna add in this rice that we cooked earlier. Toss that rice to get it coated in that oil. Then add in 1/4 cup of low sodium soy sauce. I like the low sodium soy sauce because the regular soy sauce just seems to be a little bit too salty. If you're trying to eat gluten-free, you can use tamari sauce instead of soy sauce. Or some soy sauce brands are actually gluten-free, so just check the label. All right, and now we're gonna add in some of these frozen peas and carrots, and these came straight from my freezer, and they're fine because they're just gonna cook through really quickly. They don't need a ton of time. And so I like to add in just, you know, whatever I like, about 1 to 2 cups is what it was. At this point, if you wanna throw in some chopped ham, or maybe some chopped cooked pieces of chicken. That would be a really good way to make this into a whole dinner. And then finally, we're gonna add in 1 teaspoon of sesame oil. As soon as the peas and carrots are warmed through, you can serve up this delicious fried rice for dinner.
Love it if you would subscribe to my channel. I put out a new Instant Pot recipe or tip, trick every single week. So I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.